welcome to another edition of Lift Tutoring. There's been a lot that has happened since the last time I made a video. A lot. So I thought what would be good and beneficial today is to talk about it. We should talk about it. It might make people uncomfortable, and that's okay. My whole philosophy as an educator is people can't grow unless they're uncomfortable. Growing is not always comfortable. And if we're seeking growth, that's the main point. You never want to be stagnant, right? You always want to grow. There's been a lot that's happened with just point blank, with Black Lives Matter and George Floyd. And my conversation today is going to be twofold. One, I want to stress the importance of talking to your children about race. Two, I want to give you a metaphor for heroes and who exactly it is that they fight for. So, as an educator, there are lots of times where I see children in disequilibrium. Disequilibrium mainly means they're confused. They don't know how to not be confused when they're presented with new subject matter. So my job as an educator is to help them reach equilibrium so that they're not confused. Because every time they learn something new, they're going to be in disequilibrium. Being in disequilibrium is not comfortable. Being in disequilibrium does not feel good. Being in disequilibrium sometimes can be frustrating, and it can be mind-racking and anxiety-driven. But my purpose as an educator of young minds is to help them understand that they are part of the solution. I'm not just going to give them the answer. They have to figure out how to use their strategies that I've been giving them to find the answer. And I've taught many races of children. I've taught many different cultures of children. And I can say, without a shadow of a doubt, your children can handle these conversations. But what I would implore you is to not let someone else that is not you, the parent, be the first time that they're exploring these conversations that will cause them disequilibrium. You as their parent need to do as much as you can to bring awareness to your child about some of the difficult conversations that even adults are having amongst one another. You might not have all the answers, and you might not fully understand what it is, but the conversations have to happen for change to take place. And I can tell you, quite matter-of-factly, that those conversations can happen as young as 5. During Black History Month this year, I taught majority white students. And I simply broke down to them, while we were learning about Harriet Tubman, and while we were learning about Ruby Bridges, and while we were learning about Booker T. Washington and George Washington Carver and Jesse Owens, while we were learning about these people, I simply said to them, there was a time where I couldn't have been your teacher. And the look of confusion on their faces was something I'm never going to forget. I saw anger, I saw disappointment, I saw confusion, I saw sadness. They said, but we love you. And I said, yeah, I love you guys too. But if this was a different time, I could not be your teacher. And it was confusing for them. But they understood the very, no pun intended, black and white nature of what I was telling them. There was a time where I literally could not be their teacher because of the color of my skin. Those kids loved Black History Month. They loved learning about Ruby Bridges. They loved learning about Harriet Tubman. And they loved learning about Jesse Owens. And they loved learning about Frederick Douglass and how him and Abraham Lincoln were friends. And they loved George Washington Carver and the fact of all the things he made with the peanut. It's just, and Booker T. Washington. And it just, they thought it was fascinating. But the one person they identified with the most was Ruby. Because Ruby was their age. And Ruby got ridiculed and mocked and spit on and yelled at and called horrible names. And they could identify with her, even though they did not look like her, because at the end of the day, they were all children. And when I tell you that there are developmentally appropriate ways to have uncomfortable conversations with your children, you need to have them so that when they get older, they are not being told what to think by a million different outlets. The problem that is purveying in American culture right now is the fact that we aren't teaching our children certain things. We don't want them to be uncomfortable. It's okay to be uncomfortable. It's okay to have uncomfortable conversations that involve real life with your kids. Hear what I'm saying. You have to remember their age. And you have to remember what it is and what you shouldn't be necessarily being graphic about. But there are ways to introduce this. And I know for a fact, some of you parents may say, but I don't want my kids to see color. And I understand that. I understand that sentiment. There's a difference between treating people equally and understanding that we have differences. It doesn't mean that one of us is better than the other. It just means we have differences. And to ignore that difference and pretend that it isn't there is not necessarily the best way to go about it. You cannot shield your children from real life. It is okay to have a discussion about how we treat each other as human beings while recognizing our differences. We're not the same. That's okay. We're not. I'm taller. Some people are shorter. I have darker skin, lighter skin than some people. I'm a man. There's females. We have differences. And it's okay to talk about those differences while acknowledging that we need to treat people kindly, with love and respect. So I'd implore you, if you have not had these conversations, now is the time to have these conversations with your children. Or else they're going to be molded by their idol or their person they look up to that isn't mom and dad. At the end of the day, you have the most influence over your children. Yes, some of them were with me for 7 hours a day. But once they leave me, they still got you. And they may turn on TV and they need a rudder in the back of the boat to guide them through this chaotic world that we have. It's you. It starts at home. And a big piece of it is their teachers, because their teachers are a huge influence. They're not our kids. They're your kids. We adopt them. We love them. We give them tools that they need to be great and to go towards their own infinity. But they are your children. In the conversations, especially the most uncomfortable ones, need to be had at home. Secondly, a lot of people misunderstand Black Lives Matter. I'm going to be perfectly honest with you. I didn't fully understand it when it started. There were different narratives that were being projected for what Black Lives Matter meant. And I couldn't hear through all the screaming and all the anger and sadness or all the opportunism by some people. I couldn't hear the message. It's loud and clear now. And I'm going to give you an analogy, because we have to bring it back to video games and pop culture. That's what we're about. Education through things that people are actually interested in. Just because the medium is different doesn't mean it's not education. So let me bring it back to you. Superheroes. When Superman is living his regular life and he hears a cry for distress and he goes to help that person and everybody cheers, Superman, you saved that plane from going down. Superman, you saved that boat from capsizing. Superman, you stopped that train from smashing into another train. Thank you, is what they say. Thank you for helping those who needed it the most in the moment. Thank you, Superman. Here's what you don't hear. I had a problem and I fell down and I skinned my knee. Where was Superman? Or I had a problem and I felt like I was in danger. Where was Superman? You don't hear that. When heroes are doing their work, their service, to make sure that people have equality, they're going to tend to the ones most in need. They are going to tend to the ones that are most in need. I play a game called Overwatch. Some of you have seen it on the channel before. There's a lot of characters that do damage, high damage. There's a handful of characters that are shields to protect. But they aren't the most important ones. You could have all the shields in the world, and you could have as much firepower as possible. If you don't have healers, you aren't going to win the game. Plain and simple. You're not. You could stack your team with as many shields as you want. You're not going to win. You could stack your team with as many damaged characters as you want. You're not going to win. If you don't have the healers, if you don't have the people taking care of the critically ill, if you don't have the people taking care of the ones that are battered and bruised, you will not succeed. I can't think of a better analogy. Right now, there are black people all over this country that know that a system is not working for us. And it's a critical concern. So, when I'm the healer on my team, and there's 5 other teammates, 6 in total, and I see one of my teammates, all of my teammates, their health matters. Their success matters. Because all of them, when they're doing well, I'm doing well. When they're winning and doing their jobs, I'm able to win while doing my job. But when one of them is critical and literally on their last health point, My focus is now not the entire team. My focus is that individual character that needs my help. And in the game, there is no button for why are you helping them? I've lost a couple points out of 200 of my health. Why aren't you healing me? I will get to you, but I've got to take care of this critical teammate right now. Because right now, that critical teammate's life matters. So please do not misunderstand. When people are screaming out Black Lives Matter, they are saying it because we can't all move forward in humanity until we acknowledge that all of humanity can't matter until we take care of the people who are most critical. That's what that means. So, as we come up to Juneteenth, I'm giving you something to think about. This isn't political. You might think it is. Somebody might tell you it is. Some leaders might tell you it is. It's not. We are all in this together.